Hello, welcome back to Breeze Gaming. Today we're going over a Python tutorial for the Hangman game. Now, I am currently inside of Jupyter Notebook working with Python, and what I have here on the left is the entire source code for the Hangman game. Now, as for any other game inside of Python, there are relatively an infinite number of ways you can do these games, and you can adjust the variables and the definitions to your liking. So there's no correct way to do this. This just happens to be the way that I am working the code today. So feel free to edit or change or do whatever you would like. Now, we're going to start, we're going to break down this code, and we're going to break it down into four parts: the import, starting variables, definitions, and game code. So I hope you learned something, and I'm going to walk through this step by step with y'all. And so hopefully you'll be able to learn how to do this code and learn about the different components for this code. But we're going to go ahead and jump straight in there with the imports. And the only module we'll be importing is the random module. This allows the program to randomly select a word from the word bank that we create. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the mechanics behind how Hangman works, the goal of the game is for the player to enter letters to guess a word chosen from a word bank before the number of attempts run out. So essentially, um, our program will select a word from a word bank that we define. And the goal of the player is to guess what the word is using letters, similar to how Wheel of Fortune on TV works, entering a letter at a time, and you have a certain number of attempts to do that, dictated by the symbolic representation of the stage that your hangman is at. And traditionally, you'll have like hangman with like stick figures, and you'll have like a head and arms and legs. But in this case, I just made it simple, and I just have like three lines. So you have three attempts, and once those run out, and this symbol pops up, then you lose and you have to start over. And then this is the word bank right here. So moving on to the starting variables, like I already started discussing, we have two starting variables that we're working with. We have hangman stages and words, and you can obviously name these however you want. So these are the hangman stages, and the most important part of this is you can make these whatever you want. You can draw whatever you want for these. But the most important part of this is that you use the three apostrophes to separate them, and you use the commas to separate them as well. So that's the most important part, so the computer can read it properly. Next is you'll have all of the words in your list. So you can create as many lists as you would like. You can have words one, words two, words three. You can literally do whatever you would like. But the most important part about whatever list you create is that you separate the words by spaces, and you use the split at the end. If you do not use the split at the end, what the program will do is it won't read these words as separate words. It'll just read letters. So when you use we're going to use the definition get random word, instead of grabbing a random word, it'll grab a letter from here. So we'll just grab like C or A or R, and you will only be guessing a letter instead of an entire word for the game. So this split is essential. And speaking of the get random word, we're going to hop into the first definition, which is that get random word definition. And this will be the definition that utilizes the random module that we imported. So what we'll have is we'll have whatever word list that we defined. And in this case, the word list we defined is words. Now, you're probably asking, why are you creating an entirely new variable? Why don't you just put words in there? And I will explain that in 1 second. So, and what I'm doing is just in using the random module to help the computer pull a random word. So essentially, if we look right here, so what this word index is doing is it's pulling a random word from our word list, which is the list that we define. And in this case, the word list we're defining is words. But the reason we're creating a new variable instead of using words is this allows us to create as many lists as we want. We can do words 2, 3, 4, 5, 100, however many lists we want. And whenever we want to change a list that we're using, a word bank that we're using, all we have to do is change it once instead of changing like word lists multiple times. So it just makes it more efficient. If you're using Git, the random module in like a much bigger game where you have multiple lists that it can choose from, instead of retyping something a bunch of times, you can just change something once. And what I'm talking about is something is down here when we actually implement the def. This is where on the left here, this get random word. This is where we'll be implementing the get random word definition. And in parentheses, here we have the word list that we're going to use, which is words. So all we have to do is if we want to change a word list, the word bank that it pulls from, we just change this one time. So instead of changing word list a bunch of times, we're just changing this right here once. And secret word will ultimately be the word that the computer chooses. So, and we'll get more into that. But I hope that makes sense. So instead of changing it, word list a bunch of times, we're just going to change words once if we want to change the list that we're pulling from. But in this case, we just have one list. It's going to be simple. We just have words. So next, we actually want to return the word, because if we do not return the word, there will be no word that's ultimately pulled. So up here, we're going return word list from a word list, pulling a word, and that'll be represented by word index. And there we go. There's our get random word definition. So we have our first definition down. We are doing good. So our next definition will be display board. Now I have display board here, but for this game, we're not displaying an actual window with any kind of board. All we're doing is we're displaying the visual information that the player needs to know in order to make a guess. So this is what we want the player to see. So if this definition is, what do we want the player to be able to see every time we play the game? What information do we want to give them? And in this case, we want to provide them with the letters that they guessed incorrectly, which is misletters, the get letters they've guessed correctly, which is correct letters, and the secret word, which the secret word, like I discussed, is whatever word the program chooses. But also we want to display the specific Hangman stage associated with the number of letters they have missed and guessed incorrectly. So right here, what this is doing is this is pulling the Hangman stage that's associated with the number of letters that the player has missed. So this right here, and then we have to make sure we print. What this is doing right here is this is allowing the actual Hangman stage to be printed, from here, based on the number of letters that have been missed. And right here, we're just going to continue that. With speaking of the missed letters, what we're going to do is we're going to tell the player for a quality of life feature. This isn't necessary, but all this does is it shows the player, okay, here are the letters that you have missed, and this just helps prevent the player from entering a repeated letter. So print letter and then print. So what this does is this will be printing the specific missed letters that we have missed. So if I enter Z in, the secret word does not have Z. This will allow the program to display that Z letter that we missed. So next, this is important. This will be the blanks. So if you've ever played in person on like a whiteboard or chalkboard or something, do kids even use chalkboards anymore? I'm not sure. But what this allows is, this part of the code allows it'll have the program, every time we play Hangman, it'll display the number of blanks associated with the secret word. The length, I should specifically say the length of the secret word. Now, for our scenario here, in our word bank, all of our letters are 3 letters. But if you have a word bank with letters that have different lengths, this will allow the program to display the number of blanks that are associated with the word chosen. And in addition to that, so on top of that, we also want the program to display correct letters inside of those blanks. So if you're thinking back, so you You're writing the blanks on the board. If a player guesses a letter correctly, say the word is cat, and someone says letter C, and you want the program to put that letter C in on those blanks to say, okay, good job, you got a letter correct. Here's where the letter goes to help the player, determine, all right, what letter do I want to guess next? And so we're going. This part of the code will allow us to put the letter they guess correctly inside those blanks. So we have if the secret word I in correct letters. So whatever letters are part of the secret word that's chosen, um, we're going to say the blanks. And what we are doing right here is putting the letters that we get correct on top of the blanks for whatever the secret word is. So blanks I plus 1. Alrighty. So there we go. And my apologies. I'll move my screen up here. So what we have is this will allow the program to display the letters we get correct into those blanks that we just created. So, and continuing with the blanks, we're going to say for letter in blanks, we're going to print. So this actually prints the letter in the blanks. And so whenever you're going to, an important note and just to keep in mind is whenever you want the computer to print or return something for the player to see, inside your code you'll always have something that says print or return. So if you want to print something and it's not printing, make sure you have the word print or return and you have that in your code somewhere, so the program knows to actually print that out for the player. So, and that is our second definition, display board. So now all of the information that we want the player to know will be displayed. So our third definition will be get guess. So get guess, already guessed. Okay. So for this one, and right here we're going to have some if and else if statements for getting the guess. So what we're going to start with while true. So while true, we are going to have the player guess letter. So this is when we call get guess down here when we have the actual game, um, guess equals get guess. What this will allow us to do by having this definition get guess, it will allow the player to guess a letter, but it'll also what we're going to make sure we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the player cannot enter the same guess already again, and um, just make sure that flows smoothly. What we're going to do is print guess letter, and we're going to do guess equals input. So here's the input right here. So whenever we enter input in code, that allows the player to actually enter something. So this allows the player, this will pull up a blank, so allow the player to guess a letter. And we want the guess to be in lowercase. And if the length of the guess is not 1, so this is important. So for Hangman, we're guessing one letter at a time. We're not guessing a whole word, and we're guessing a letter and not a number. So with right here, this is saying if the length of the guess is not 1, so if it's like a word, or if they don't enter anything, we're going to say, please enter a letter. So, and I'm just going to change this to help it. Please enter 1 letter. So if it's not 1, and they enter multiple letters, it'll say, please enter a letter. Now, if it's already guessed, so if they enter something that has been guessed previously, we're going to print. And for all of this, you can type whatever you would like. This is up to your discretion, but this is just what I'll have for this code. And then, so if it's already guessed, it'll say, okay, you already guessed this, guess again. And so these are some quality of life things that allows the game to flow more smoothly. Um, and then we just have the entire alphabet here. So this is kind of the um, apologies. Okay, so what we have here is we just, if they don't, if they enter one letter and it's not already guessed, it'll say, if it's not within this. So this part is if it's not A through Z, and I believe I entered the whole alphabet, we're going to say enter letter. So once again, you can put anything here. But these are some checks and balances that allow the get guess it's checking the guess. So it's some checks and balances to make sure the player is entering one letter that has not been guessed, that is an actual letter and not a number. So when we have the input and the player enters the letter, we'll go through, okay, is it just one letter? Is it, one letter is not more than that? Okay, if it is, move on. If it's not already guessed, it's a new letter. All right, move on. And if it's, A through Z, if it's not a numeral digit, if it's just a letter, then okay, we move on and it'll return the guess. So this is some checks and balances to make sure all that works out. In game design, whenever you're making a game, it's good to think, all right, what could confuse or mess the player up? What's some quality of life things we can do to help um, make sure the game runs smoothly? So that is our third definition, get guess. So our fourth definition is play again. So this will allow us to play the game repeatedly. And so for any game, if you want to have a repeat, if you want to be the player to be able to restart the game and replay it, this is an important definition to have inside your game. So reset game. Once again, you can enter whatever you want here. This is just what I have. So we're going to return input, and we want to make sure, and I need to put the parentheses lower. We want to make sure it's lowercase. Starts with Y. So what this definition is doing is it allows us to be able to play again if we want to. Um, and that is the fourth definition, and that is all. So once again, we'll have four definitions: get random word, display board, get guessed, and definition play again. I'm going to go ahead and call these cells. Make sure there's no errors. Invalid syntax. Ooh, looks like I entered the same letter twice. That's funny. For letter, and misletters. Okay, we're good. Now, the game code, we're going to move on. So this game code will be the meat of everything. So we'll be calling up the definitions and our variables. So to start, we're going to print Hangman. Okay, and then we're going to create some new variables. We have misletters, correct letters, and we're just going to create empty variables for these. And remember, if you remember when we were creating the definitions, we already called some of these. We actually already called all of these. Um, missed letters, so that's the letters that the player missed. Correct letters, that's the letters those are the letters that the player gets right. And then we have secret word, which remember it calls the get random word definition, which calls from our whatever list we decide, words, which is our word bank. And then a new one is game is done. So equals, we're going to start that equals false. So this game is done variable right here. It's a Boolean. What it essentially does is it checks the status of our game. Is the game done or not? If the game is done, it's true. If the game is not done, it's false. So we're going to start it off as false. The game is not done. So while true, we're going to call the display board. So when we're starting our game, we want to display everything for the player. All right, so remember when we created the display word definition, we have the three variables: misletters, correct letters, and secret word. So we are calling our definition here that we wrote above, and we're going to say guess, and we'll be calling the get guess definition now. So whatever guess the player makes, we're going to grab that, and we are going to run it through our get guess definition. So remember, get guess confirms to make sure the letter is playable in a sense. If the letter is playable, it'll return the guess for us. And that is the guess. This is our guess. But we want to run it through that definition to make sure the guess is valid. So if the guess in secret word, so remember, once we get to this point, the guess is valid. So now we're going to run it. We're going to have the game check to see if it's in our secret word map. So correct letters equals correct letters plus guess. So, and then we have a new variable here. Found all letters equals true. Now, this is another Boolean that's checking the actual status of whether or not we've found all the letters in the word or not. In this case, we're going to leave this as true, and we're going to say for I in range, which is the actual length of the secret word. We're going to say if the secret word I is not incorrect letters, so, and then we say found all letters equals false, and then we're going to break it. So if we look here, we're checking to see if the letter, which is I, with, we're checking to see if the letter that is guessed, if our guess is inside of secret word. And if the letter that we guess is not in the secret, where if it's not in the correct letters, the found all letters will be false and will break and we'll move on. But I found all letters, so if we did, if the guess was correct and all letters will be are found, we can put something like yes, the correct word is plus secret word, and the secret word is already in string format. And then the game is done. We're going to switch that to true. I cannot type today. Okay. So essentially what this is saying is, what we're doing is we're checking to see if the player has found all the letters. So up here that is supposed to be plus. So if the player has found all the letters inside of the secret word, we're going to say found all letters, yes, the correct word is this, and then game is done true. If not, if it's not, we're going to break and we're going to keep going until the player finds all the letters or runs out of guesses. So we're going to go back to our outer if statement here. I'm going to go to else, the missed letters is missed letters plus guess. We're going to keep scrolling down here, and we're going to say if the length of missed letters equals the length of Hangman stages minus 1, we're going to display the board. So we're calling that display board definition again to display all of the information that we want the player to know. Secret word. All right. Two parentheses there. And we're going to have the program print out for us. Print. And like I said, you can put whatever you would like here. But I'm just going to put this for my game after. Okay. So what we're doing here is we are essentially printing out if the player runs out of guesses. So what do we want the program to say if the player runs out of guesses? So we use up our Hangman attempts, and it's the end of the game, and we want to say, and we want the program to read, all right, so the player's out of guesses. Here is the correct secret word, and we want to print the final Hangman string, the length of the correct letters plus the correct guesses word was, and then whatever the secret word was. All right, so let's make sure all of our apostrophes and quotations are correct, and we're not going to get an error there. It should be good. And then, so essentially, if the player enters the number of missed letters, that's equivalent to the final Hangman form, and that we run out of attempts. Game is done, and the game wins. Now, if the game is done, what we're going to do now is we're going to call that final definition we made for play again. So, play again. Okay. All right. So, if we're playing again, what we're doing is we're essentially resetting everything. So, akin to how you would reset everything if you were playing on a chalkboard, we are resetting everything. We are resetting the variables in the game. We are erasing the blanks and we're drawing. We're erasing the blanks. We're erasing letters. We are erasing everything, and we're going to say put the game back on, saying the game is not done, and finally we're going to call a new word. So we're going to have the game, since we're resetting the game, we're going to have the program grab a new word out of the word bank of whatever our chosen word bank is, and we're going to break the game if the player does not want to continue. So what this allows us to do is reset everything and grab a new word from the word bank to play again. So and that is everything. So what you have right here is the complete breakdown of the Hangman game. What we have up here are imports. We just have import random. We have our starting variables. We have our 4 definitions. Get random word, display board, get guessed, and play again. And then we have our actual Hangman code. We're going to define the variables up here. Game is done is false, and while true, we're going to run through the entire game. Has the player found all the letters? What letters are missing? We're going to display everything for the player each iteration, and if the game is done, we're going to reset everything. So let's call this to see if there are any errors. All right, so let's see. O is not defined. Did I do that again? I've done that multiple times, and I don't know why I keep doing that. Putting 0 in there instead of putting the letter O instead of 0. Where is that? Word index. I'm sure y'all are looking at it like, oh, it's right there, and I'm just completely blind. Oh, goodness. Okay, it must be oh, okay. Yeah, it's up here in the definition for word index. Yeah, 0. So let's call this again, and then let's see if I have any more errors. All right, there we go. Hangman. Boom. So what it's doing is it's displaying our first image that we created up there, and it's chosen. Here are blanks. It's chosen one of the words out of here, out of our word bank. So let's guess letter A. All right, there is an error. Blank is not defined. Yep. Okay, so I entered blank instead of blanks. My apologies for making some of these errors, but that is okay. We're going to reset the game. All right, there we go. So we're going to guess letter. All right, so looks like I guessed correctly. No new iteration is forming for the next image, so we're good. I'm going to guess A again and see what happens. So already guessed, try again. All right, guess the letter. Sweet. All right, this time W. Enter letter, guess a letter. Hmm. I think when I guess it doesn't say guess a letter. So yeah. Looks like it did something with W there. It doesn't like W for some reason. Um, so yeah, Y is wrong, and the guess letter, okay. And so after 3, the word was can. So out of guesses, after 3 missed guesses and 2 correct guesses, the word was can. Reset game, yes or no, we're gonna reset. I don't know what's going on with oh, I know what it is. I forgot to put it in here. Yep, wow. I forgot W in the alphabet. That's good to know. So if there's ever an error, there's always a reason. Um, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to restart and clear the outputs. Okay. Okay. We're just going to restart this. Here we go. So let's guess. Yeah, W works. All right, we missed the letter T. Oh, looks like T is in it. C, we missed the letter A. All right, we got A. What do you think? Is it rat? Oh no, we missed it. It was bad. So it looks like it's working now. What if we don't? Okay, if we put no, then it'll break and it'll end the game. Um, so that works. Um, awesome. So if I get it right, yes, the correct word is car. Sweet. So it looks like the game works. We fixed the errors. So there we go. There's the Hangman tutorial. Feel free to edit it however you would like. This is the basic mechanic. We have our game. We're pulling words from word bank and we're trying to guess the letters in those words. But that is the entire Hangman tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and thank you for checking in. I will see y'all in the next video and I appreciate you watching. Bye.